Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Blaster Master 2. In the last part we start off the game and now we're entering Stage 3, which is probably my least favorite musical track in the game. This thing just gets irritating after a while. Stage 3 is the fire stage, and because of that we actually have one of the more dangerous hazards in the game here, and lava. Lava in this game is instant kill, although the fireballs seen below are not. It's just anything that's pure lava. And that includes lava that's on the floor that's hard to notice on your first time through. More on that in a few moments. With that said, this is easily one of the more unique stages in the game in that it's probably the one that you spend the most time as Jason standalone. Because most of the other stages, you take S.O.P.H.I.A to get to either a door that leads to the boss fight as Jason, or the boss fights as Jason rather, and then you just take the S.O.P.H.I.A over to the next one. In this, you let go of the S.O.P.H.I.A really quick, and you spend most of the level as just Jason standalone, so that you can get whatever you need to go, really. Now, this screen in particular, more so when we're leaving it on to get back to the S.O.P.H.I.A, because the boss fight we're looking for is in this room, is where one of the game's carryovers from Blaster Master 1, more of a series mechanic, staple mechanic in general, really comes apparent. Fall damage. Jason can only fall about, I think, 3 or 4 his own height before he starts taking fall damage. And if you fall too far, you do die instantly. And that includes if you jump and then fall. To the point where when you're leaving this room, you're just going to want to walk off some of the ledges in order to fall to the next platform rather than jumping off to avoid some fall damage. With that said, time for the first boss fight of Stage 3. This thing, it comes out of any of the gaps between the platforms in the stage, and then fires some shots diagonally. If you stand at the opposite extreme of the center platform, though, and fire diagonally, you can hit it. It can't hit you, making this intensely easy. I'd argue, honestly, Stage 3 has the easiest boss fights in the game. No, actually, no, just in the game, period. But that's, you want to be a little careful, because the boss fights themselves are always what drop the power-ups at the end, so you need to kind of time a jump to pick up it as it falls down. Otherwise, you're just going to have to go take some damage in the lava. The boss fight lava, I think, is the only lava that's not instant kill, maybe? Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, please. I actually generally don't fall into many of the platform holes that have lava in it. Yeah, like right here, fall down each of these, otherwise you're taking some fall damage. With that said, for beating that boss fight, we got the Insulated Goggles, which are sort of a key? What they do is that there is one particular room, maybe even 2 in this stage, that if you walk into, it's just too bright for you to see anything. Also, we're going to fast forward to get back to the S.O.P.H.I.A. With the Insulated Goggles, it'll appear as if nothing's there at all. It's just going to look normal to us. So that's honestly a key item that is a key item that you might not even notice you're using if you just went out of your way to explore first. And you use it pretty quickly after, too. Because we're going to start using it, I think, the moment I go through this next door. I genuinely forget what it looks like if you go through there beforehand. And honestly, I'm not going to go back to record new footage for this game. Because, yeah, I recorded this over half a month ago. So, don't feel like it. But yeah, here is where the goggles actively become active. Now, you might notice the top of those blocks looks a little different. You can run into those as well if you go the opposite direction from where I did earlier. Instead of taking the ladder below, if you jumped up with the S.O.P.H.I.A. Those blocks, as well as some platforms coming up in the next room or 2, are coated with glowing lava. If you touch them with Jason, it is an instant kill. So be careful. If you touch them with S.O.P.H.I.A, it doesn't do much. It's more or less meant to just be a beginner's chop up. This looks normal. Oh, it's not. Keep walking, by the way, in that ceiling trap, and then one coming up will not be a single threat to you. And I'll give the game this. Despite my several shortcomings with how I feel the game works as a Blaster Master, with its more linear levels, I do feel they do a good job of keeping the spirit of the main, the quote-unquote main series level varieties in, because they do a good job of making every level feel like it has its own identity, even if what you do in it is by and large the same. Partially with each stage having usually a pretty unique tile set and level aesthetic, but we'll get more into some of the shortcomings of that in its own regard later on. Plus, I appreciate, again, the levels doing more with Jason on his own, Because that was the biggest problem with Blaster Master 1, barring some odd mechanic stuff. Don't step any further, by the way. That to the right and above me is the lava that will instant kill Jason. Doing more with Jason in this game, which the Zero series would do as well, is like, my brain wanted to make a comparison to Metroid, but there's not really an easy comparison I can make to Metroid there, except for maybe doing more of Morph Ball. A good comparison is honestly Metal Warriors on the Super Nintendo, because you get to do a lot out of the suit and in the suit as well. It makes both parts of the equation feel more important. Not to say Blaster Master 1 didn't have Jason's stuff that was cool, the boss fights and the top-down stuff is nice, but I like them doing this as well. And the Zero series, in general, I feel, is the peak of a lot of that, because it uses the S.O.P.H.I.A, top-down Jason, and side-scrolling Jason, all to pretty good effect, usually. Albeit, I think side-scrolling Jason is much more capable in this game than he is in any of the Zero games, but that's just due to what the major focus is in those games. Oh, the lava is an instant kill for the S.O.P.H.I.A. Huh, for some reason I thought it was. Turns out taking like a half month between recording and commentating on something can make you forget stuff. And that's partially just because of the way I've been structuring recording behind the scenes now, where I do like 2 or 3 games in a row, then edit the footage, and then record commentary. Sometimes I'm more likely to forget things in that regard, but then there's things that'll stick with you more. God knows I'm gonna have things to talk about a couple games from now. Oh boy, the most recent game we recorded. Be careful, don't take any steps further right, because that's instant kill lava. We want to climb down here in order to get to our next mini-boss. Of all things to keep consistent across Blaster Master, though, why slow climbing ladders? At least increase his speed or make shorter ladders. Because having beaten Blaster Master 03 relatively recently, I think I did that in like September or October. When did that game even release? It's still bad there. Either way, second mini-boss for Stage 3 is the exact same as the first one. It doesn't even, I think, have much more health. It's the exact same attack pattern. Stay on the opposite extreme of the center platform and shoot diagonally up, and it will never be able to touch you. With that said, like with the last one, when we actually defeat this boss fight, you're going to need to make a little bit of a dangerous jump in order to actively grab the item before it falls in the lava to avoid some extra damage. And this is admittedly more of an interesting item we get from this. It's still technically more of a key than a usable item. What we're going to get for this is the fireproof armor. It turns Jason red or green depending on the stage's lighting. And now we can walk on the lava without dying instantly. I don't think it increases the power of your defenses. If it does, I seldom notice it. But I like the red. It's closer to, well, it's more in tune with what Jason looked like in the other games, where he's usually red in some form. You don't need to come over to this particular door at all now, I think, but I think this is just a life. Yeah, no, it's 2 health pickups and some sub-weapons. And you know what? I'll take the sub-weapons. Once you get the fireproof armor, though, all you need to do is go back up to the S.O.P.H.I.A, and you're more or less done with the level. There's me taking full damage just from jumping, by the way. Because from here on, it's just a straight shot to the right, and then we're on to the top-down section. Jason, you're not exactly firing diagonally there, but you still are. They didn't really make a walking and shooting up diagonally sprite for him, which is a little weird. Speaking of weird, I was looking more into the development of this game behind the scenes, and I realized this is one of those games that was developed out of house. Apparently later on, when it came to making sequels of their successful games, Sunsoft wasn't too interested in making them themselves, so the American branch usually commissioned them out to be outsourced, more or less. In particular, that happened with, I think, Batman, this, I want to say maybe even some of the other games that were developed in-house, quote-unquote, like Solstice. In fact, this was developed by the same team as Solstice. This was developed by Software Creations, which eventually was bought up and became Acclaim Studios Manchester. They made some scattered ports of famous games, like some various PC ports of like Ghouls and Ghosts, Bionic Commando. They're the ones that developed Pictionary, Solstice, and Silver Surfer for the NES. But arguably the most famous games are I say arguably for very intense reasons, the Beauty and the Beast games on Genesis, and I think the Genesis version of one of the Spider-Man beat-em-ups. They were a company that did a lot of ports, is the bottom line here. And I'm not going to say porting a game is easier than developing the game from base, but in a lot of ways you can tell this was one of their earlier 16-bit outings, because I think the only one that wasn't like an 8-bit computer or console in some regard before this was one of the other Spider-Man games. And maybe a Double Dragon, looking around. So they definitely got a little better at making 16-bit stuff, but this is a case where they probably weren't ready to make something this intense, and it was probably also a little rushed, because we don't see much about development behind the scenes. In fact, can I even find anything about the individual development? Yeah, we don't even have, like, most of the development staff known. We just know the composer was Tony Williams? What did he work on? We're just waiting for one of these weird snail mechs anyway, so we might as well see. Tony Williams, rather. Amiga version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, one of the versions of Lemmings, he apparently made a song or so. This. Maximum Carnage? Oh, so he might be partially responsible for just straight up ripping the mob rules into that sound font, huh? Not much on there. Oh, okay, I see. I'm just reading up on him really quick. Apparently, the Folan brothers usually did Software Creation's Super Nintendo outing songs, and then Anthony Williams would just convert it for the Genesis sound chip. So that's why in some cases of multi-plat games, I guess, the Genesis versions did sound worse. They were just conversions of things composed for the Super Nintendo. That makes a surprising amount of sense. Either way, welcome to Stage 4. I don't remember which stage this is off the top of my head, because some of them are very much... Oh, no, it's this one. This is actually one of the shorter stages in the game when it comes to the Sophia and Jason stuff. But it's also the first one that's more of a maze, because there's a lot of doors for you to enter. Sometimes you can only open doors if you have a key, and sometimes there's doors that just lead back to the same door over and over again. So you just need to figure out which doors are the right ones to go through, and that takes a lot of trial and error, or you can just have played the game before in some regard and either remember or do practice. And the bosses here are pretty straightforward. They're both disc dudes like this. This guy sends out cannons around him that then fire rotating bullets as they rotate around, and then he'll go a little crazy trying to hit you, and well, then he'll stand still and just take a lot of hits again. This is my favorite type of boss fight in games like this, ones that give me plenty of opportunity to hit them, because that means they go down all the more quickly. With that said, for beating this boss fight, or is it this boss fight? No, for this boss fight we just get a key that allows us to access the second one. It's the second boss fight that gives us something that really grinds my gears. Oh no, it is this one! That's right, this is the first enemy that drops 2. What this is the 3-way cannon, which is a sub-weapon we've had since the start of the game for the Sophia, but now we get it for Jason. So now Jason can start using sub-weapons, but only in the side-scrolling sections that aren't boss fights. This grinds my gears for 2 reasons. One, I feel giving Jason sub-weapons is more important earlier on in the game than in the latter half, because there's only, I think, 7 or 8 stages in this game total. I can't exactly remember the exact amount, because the final stage is pretty short all the same. Additionally, not being able to use sub-weapons in boss fights, arguably where they'd be at their most useful, is just weird. This game either needed more time to cook, or they just needed to think their decisions through better, because very few other games that I've played have done that exact sort of mistake. If you get a sub-weapon, you're usually able to use it anytime you're playing as that character. Not being able to use it in this instance is just bizarre. The second mini-boss for this stage, though, is pretty straightforward. It's the same as the last one, only this one, its main attack is to teleport and try to do touch damage on you. Thankfully, when it teleports in, it has a brief moment of fading in that it's vulnerable to... No, it's not vulnerable to being damaged. You're just not vulnerable to be hit during it. You can get out of its way. And it tends to move towards the top left of the screen, I've noticed over the years. So if you just tend to stay below it and to the left or right, you're probably not going to get hit too much. It takes longer than the other one, only because it has moments of invincibility. Additionally, giving Jason sub-weapons would make getting the gun upgrade so early make more sense to me, because then you'd be able to do more damage the further in you got. And then you can make the bosses more complicated. They could have done so much more with Jason in this game when it comes to boss fights. And here we get a returning power-up from Blaster Master 1. This is the Jet Hover for the S.O.P.H.I.A. With that said, it's noticeably been nerfed, because you might notice at the bottom left, below our health gauge, we have a second gauge. Fuel. Occasionally now you'll find fuel pickups, and you use those to power the jets. The jets are always active, though, unlike Blaster Master 1 where you need to hold the jump button. So the moment you jump, you're using it. But that said, you can pace tapping the jump button to get some amount of controlled flight. You just need to be careful, because the longer you hold it, the more you accelerate. So controlling the jets can be surprisingly aggravating. Additionally, in order for smaller jumps like that to be made more easily, you just need to go into the menu and turn it on and off over and over again. It's just tedious to work with. Makes me wonder in some regards if this game would have been improved if they had done something with the 6-button Genesis controller rather than just using the 3-button. Like maybe having the jets be mapped to a second button on like Z or something by default. Could have helped, but again, when did this game come out again? 95, I think, right? Oh no, I died. What am I going to do? Let's see. 1993, yeah, the 6-button controller I don't think was a thing until the mid-90s. Let me just double check that real quick, because I don't remember the top of my mind. No, released US 93, so that would have been around this period. So, yeah, using that could have been nice. But then again, it's not packaged in, so I understand not wanting to, like, force using it. God knows every game that I've played on the Genesis that uses it plays better with it, though. Shinobi 3 comes to mind, Comic Zone. I think there's some other fighting games that just play better with it, like the Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter ports. In fact, I think that's why the controller was developed. These enemies, by the way, are the worst thing in the top-down sections because they're invincible and they take forever to move. I don't mind the top-down sections, honestly. I would have preferred it if this was all S.O.P.H.I.A. was, in some regards. Because S.O.P.H.I.A. gets a lot more focus in this game than Jason, and not to say that's not how it usually is, but I feel for what the stage design is, it would have been better if they just had more Metroid-like Jason segments, where you play more like Samus, and then these vehicle segments with the S.O.P.H.I.A. were sort of, and this is a weird comparison, the dinosaur segments from Dino Wars, Destruction of Spondylus on NES, where this is just how you got from stage to stage. They could have done a lot of cool things with this game, but ultimately I really don't feel they do. Although the power-ups here are really cool. I do like how there's both negative and positive power-ups. Makes going for some of them more risk-reward. Like, yeah, you might not want the speed down, but what if right behind it's a firing rate up that's absurdly broken? You know what's another missed opportunity, though? There's never a boss fight in this gameplay style. And it's really weird because, in some regards, this gameplay style sort of returns in references in the Zero trilogy. So that could have been cool. Honestly, my mentality when it comes to the top-down S.O.P.H.I.A. segments by the end of the game usually just becomes moving through them as fast as I can while doing as much damage as I can. Because while the enemies do respawn, certain things I think don't. Or wait, no, I think only certain enemies respawn. And if I can get through and just get some extra health via the rocks along the way, that's all I need to do. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 3, we're going to be heading into Stage 5, and seeing where that takes us from there. See you guys then.